see the template that pops up, and it'll just have a list. Typically, I just use like new blank document, but you can also do new of those different things. And it actually will take you out into like the web, and you can see all the different options as well. So there's some that people have created and things like that if you want to get really fancy. I know when I was teaching students, when they had to do resumes, they would always use the resume template. I will say that when you use a template, it's not locked, but it's kind of hard to change things. So if you know that you want it to look a certain way, sometimes it's easier to create just a plain document rather than trying to work around how they already have it set up. That's just my 2 cents there. So once we started the application, the next thing that I wanted to kind of direct you to is the ribbon. So there's actually 2 sets of ribbons here in Word, and I've just done screenshots. So if you want to open Word and kind of look through as we go along, don't hesitate to do that, because we're going to actually let you play in a couple of minutes. But so if you kind of want to minimize the Zoom window, you can just do the little, it looks like a little horizontal line that'll minimize us. And you can open Word on your computer and kind of see, so that you can kind of touch and play and see the exact same things that we're seeing. So along the very top ribbon, it's the quick access ribbon is what they call it. You'll see autosave is here. So autosave automatically, if you have that on, it will continue to make records of your document, even if you didn't push save, but it saves it to OneDrive. So if you're not somebody who has navigated OneDrive a lot yet, so I have some things saved there, but not everything. So I don't have that on right now. But especially if you were working somewhere that you didn't, you were going to keep getting interrupted and you didn't want to lose your documents or something like that, it's an easy thing to have on. Probably Ned is probably a OneDrive user, and so he probably has his on all the time. Ray, do you keep yours on?
No, I usually store my stuff locally and then back it up.
Yeah. The next little section there may look different on your computer, because you can actually customize these next little tabs. So for me, I've put the things that I do the most. So I have saving, undoing, redoing, and a new document. You can go in. Can you see my mouse move in here?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a little icon right here that's just a little line with an arrow, and it brings up a new window that has all of the quick access things that you could put there. So maybe you want to always be able to open previous files. You could put that one there. Maybe you want to never be able to undo. You could do that too. It gives you options so that you can kind of customize how you want that to be. The next little area is going to show you if you've named it or not. So right now, this is just document 1. I could have saved it as document 1, but that's going to be a good indication. If I have opened something and I don't have a name on it, for me, that's how I know I haven't saved it yet, because I try really hard to always give it something to name if I'm going to keep it. The search bar here, it's going to get a new name in Microsoft Office coming shortly. It's going to say tell me, but basically you're looking for help or tell me, or it's going to let you find how to do something, quick links to something. It actually is pretty helpful, especially if you're going to do something that you haven't done very much, but you know it's possible. So like I just did a mail merge, which we'll talk about, and I hadn't done it for a while. So I clicked there and looked through their quick steps just to see, what that was or where it was. On to the next, so you see my initials again, so I know it's me. And then the next icon is going to allow me to bring that bar bigger or smaller. So if you don't want it to be there or you do want it to be there, you can decide that there as well. And then if you wanted to have make the window be smaller, that kind of stuff. Anything you want to talk about on the quick bar, Ray?
Nope. Other than you'll see that there's a dictate button there, and there are a lot of people who are actually using that to type out their notes. So something to.
Oh, I haven't got. I was only doing the very top.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I won't talk then.
So I would encourage you, if you don't have it customized, definitely take time and do that. It takes a minute to kind of play around, but then you can not have to like look back, or, you know, it just makes it be easier for you. Yours may have like no little pictures here. You can customize that as well. I got creative one day and bored and made it pretty. So moving on to that next. So if you look at that next ribbon, now we're going to kind of look through just quickly the headings here, like file, home, insert, design, references, all of those. So if you click file, it actually takes you back to the page that looks like what we were at before, which is home. So that's where you would save it. So you're going to have info, save as. So if you take a look at that left-hand ribbon, it does look different than it did before, because they've given you a few more things. But it's nice if you are saving a different copy. So this PowerPoint, for example, I sent it to Ray. Ray made some changes and he sent it back to me. So I needed to save as so that I could save a different version of it. Does everybody know the difference between save and save as? Bueller?
Yeah.
Does it make, I mean, typically saving, if you have not saved it before, you're going to get the same prompt screen if you do save or save as. But if you need to give it a name, or you just want to update something you already have, you'll just say save. So you're basically like overwriting the old program or the old document into the new document. Hey, did I butcher that, Ray?
No, you're good.
Some other things that they have that we probably don't use as much because we have different options, but the print button over there. So you probably have your default printer and you probably figured out while working at home, you can do the print to PDF. The other thing that you can do is kind of cool. This share option over here. It'll actually populate the document and pull up you can send it via email, you can send it via OneDrive, and it'll pull it up as an attachment. And so on OneDrive, if you have it saved there, you can actually just send somebody a link to it and they can view it. So I had to do this with a PowerPoint because it was so large, I couldn't send it over the web. So I shared it with another person via OneDrive so they could get to it. You can also do it as an attachment. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't just go open my email, hit attach, and send the same document. This is just another way you can do it. Another tool in your tool belt that hopefully will make life easier sometimes. The export button, currently it allows you to export as a PDF this way as well. So just again, another way you can do something. Not all computers have like a print to PDF option. So this is just another way, if you don't have that, that you can do that. And then that back arrow button gets you back to your home screen. So brings us to the home tabs.
So Anne.
Yeah.
This is Teresa.
Hi.
So if we save a document into SharePoint under our name, are you saying that other people can access that, or?
Yeah. And we're going to dig into OneDrive a little bit more on another day, but you actually, if you are in OneDrive, you can actually send them a link and they can access it as well. Or you can send them an invitation so that they can access it. So for example, I have our CEU requests in a folder on OneDrive, and I've sent Gaynor the link so that she can get in and access all of those so that I don't have to send tons of PDFs separately to her. And I know like, Stephanie, aren't you guys using OneDrive and sharing some documents maybe because of limited access to the F drive, I think. So there's different ways you can use it. It's not like you have to do it. It's just another way that you could do that.
Thank you.
The home tab, I'm not gonna lie to you, I never really thought about this until today, or until we looked at this training stuff. So don't feel like silly if you never thought about it. But all of these tabs, they've broken it down so that it's by like topic. So like here you have paste and copy and cut and format, and then you can hit this little drop down. It'll give you even more options, but it's all about like how you would take something and move it and change it around. The next one is all the font stuff. So, you know, highlighting, making it bigger, making it smaller. I always am a drop down, change the font person, but the arrows up and arrows down have become kind of nice. You can highlight something and change all of it. So if you had like a heading that was 16 points and a body that was 12, if you highlight the whole thing and just minimize it one, it'll take everything down a size without making everything the same. So just lots of little ways that you can, you know, make it one less click or one less step to do. The next section is paragraph. So I would encourage, if you don't see what you need, hit that little drop down arrow and it will populate more options there. This is just the, what do they call it? The view mode. So you'll be able to kind of see all the options there. These little guys right here are the indent or tab buttons. And I'm not going to lie to you that until I had to put all of our policies and procedures in SharePoint, I never ever used them. I never even thought about what they were. I always just used the tab button, and then I would get annoyed if it didn't work right. So these little guys, you can make it go forward or backward in those tab spaces, but with the button itself. Paragraph, putting lines in, centering, all that kind of stuff, which I'm sure that you do. Styles is the next one. So headings, they have like default styles set in. So if you're going to create, for example, the document that I sent out that had all of the like getting used to being remote, all of our how-to stuff, I used these headings because it was just going to default like, oh, it's a subtitle, so I'm going to use this heading. So I didn't have to think about like, oh, what size did I make that font and what color did I make it? And how did I do it? There's default ones in there, or you can set it up. So if you had like a special color scheme you're going to use or something like that, you can do that right there. Find, replace, and select. That's once again in editing. So if you discover you, I used to always spell wrong when I first started. I didn't understand that it was a U for university instead of YOU. I could look up replace and I could find all those times when I spelled it wrong and could have fixed it right there instead of having to read through each one. Ray, I'm going to let you jump on about dictate.
No, it's just something we've been experimenting with, not just here, but there's also a dictation mode in all of Windows 8 and above. And so for those of you who are ISCs and you're contemplating being able to dictate directly into your case notes, we think we're going to be able to help you do that. I just thought I'd tease that out a little bit. We'll probably make that a part of another training another day.
Yeah. And then the editor button, I honestly don't think I've ever played with it very much. Ray, do you use the editor button very much?
I don't use the editor button very much. Nope.
And I used it.
You have?
Yeah, I've used it quite a bit. I used it for all of my evaluations, and it just goes through and it'll give you like if you have improper sentence structure, if it suggests you use different language, if your commas are off or anything like that.
Oh, it's the same as hitting F7. Yeah. That's good. Very
nice. So then this little caret, if you don't want to see all this all the time, you can minimize this with that little caret. And then if you was minimized and you wanted to make it bigger, it would be there and you could make it larger again. I'm trying to read Ned's message. Customizing, you can customize your editing tasks as well. And printing preferences under there also. So you can, you probably have your default printer set up. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to send something and I tried to print to Pro and I'm obviously not at Pro and I'm like, where did it go? So you can adjust all of that as well so that you don't have to think about it very much. Next one is the insert tab. So I'm literally just these are just pictures so that you can kind of see what we're talking about. So I'm just moving across the row here. So pages, inserting a page break is really cool because you can put your cursor wherever you want it to be and hit the new page instead of like having to tab down or space down to try to get a new page. Adding a blank page and a cover page. So sometimes if you're doing like numbering and that kind of stuff, you'll be able to see that there. Inserting a table, I use this all the time. So anytime I want to make like a grid of, text or documents or whatever, I use that. Inserting pictures, we're going to talk about inserting pictures. in a couple of minutes, but that's where you would do this. Shapes, that's just all the shapes, the icons, and the 3D model, smart art chart. That's all stuff that Windows has built in. So if you don't like that one, you can always find a different one, or you can make your own. And then the screenshot function, I'm not gonna lie, I don't usually use screenshot in Word. I usually use the snap function, but this is another way that when you click it, it literally brings up like, what do you want to take a picture of? And you can pick it out and put it right there into your document. So it's kind of a nice option as well. Add things from files, add-ins. So Wikipedia is really the only one that we have here. Online video, this actually will help you embed a video if you wanted. So like if you had a YouTube link that you wanted to populate into this document and play when you had it, or have a thumbnail of it, you could actually do that right there. The link button, inserting a link, I do this all the time. So I put links to other documents, I put links to the web, I put links within the document. When I left my old job, I had to create a user manual for the person who was going to do my job next. And so I broke it into chapters on each part of my job, and I put a link for each one so that if you needed to do, you know, task 1, you could just click on that link and it would take you to page 5 in the document. Or you can, one of the other nice things you can do is, we've all gotten emails or pictures where, or Word documents where somebody has put the whole long gibberish kind of web address. You know, it has like 37 characters and 15 slashes and all that kind of stuff. You can put what text you want it to be and then hit link, and then it'll allow you to hyperlink it within the document, but changing the words. So if you wanted it to just say, you know, link to ISP or whatever you wanted there, you'd be able to do that. I'm gonna let Ray kind of talk about comments because he utilizes them more efficiently than I do.
Yeah, so comments, just to go over it quickly, there's also some other places where you can use these things, but I like to use comments a lot, especially when we're working collaboratively on a document, because I can drop in a comment, it'll show that it was me editing it, along with whatever changes I made to that document. And then when you get in there, you can either, the original author can either accept or reject my suggestions, and then click one button and it's just all finalized into a document. And so it's a good thing to do when you're working with a group and a bunch of people have to have input into that process. So play around with that when you get a chance. It's a pretty cool little feature.
It's especially nice if somebody, SharePoint, or excuse me, Teams will allow you to do that too, where you can like collaboratively work on a document. But if somebody's not on Teams, or they aren't, you know, in a more live time kind of place, this is a nice way to be able to do that. Or if it's something you're going to look at, you know, a year later, why did we make that change? You can have those comments there. The way I kind of think about it is, it's like when your high school English teacher wrote the notes in the margins and said like, wait, why'd you do this? Or did you check this link? It kind of allows you to do that, and you can kind of see that other person's thought process.
Yeah, that's really elaborated a couple of steps later on the ribbon menu when you go to the review section.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of that really goes on in earnest. But if you just want to drop in a quick comment, that's the place to do it.
Header, footer, page number, those are pretty self-explanatory. But it is nice, you know, way back, I remember my first Science Fair project, I had to do all of that manually and like make it tab over and put 1 and do all those things. Now they'll let you kind of customize, and they'll like, oh, do you want to count the first page? Oh, okay, here we're counting for you, that kind of stuff. Inserting a text box, we're going to look at that. It seems silly, like why would I insert a text box when I'm in a text program? But it allows you to do some cool things and to make it kind of look different. So we're going to talk about that in a couple minutes as well. But this just populates an actual box, and there's a bunch of different default ones that you can pull from. So like if you just wanted to be a plain box, if you wanted to look like a speech bubble, or all those different kinds of things that you can do there. And then the far corner is symbols and equations. So if you were doing some kind of like I don't know that we would ever use it, but when my dad was writing scientific language, he would have to pull from those because he needed those like fancy symbols to write a formula or something like that. So we're going to keep moving so that we can actually maybe try some of these out. Design. how you want it to look. So it has the default version that all, Windows or all Word documents kind of have, but you can play around and change. Maybe you always want your, kind of like you can do in Outlook where you change your font so that it like always looks that way for you. You can change this as well. Colors, I love fun fonts. So I change that a lot. You can do a watermark, page color, page borders. There's default page borders in there. So if you wanted to make it pretty and fancy, you can do that. Again, not something that you're going to do all the time, but it's nice to know that you can do it easily and quickly. So then you get to layout. So all of these things are going to deal with how it looks. So margins is one that you might use a lot when you're trying to squeeze more information onto a text, or maybe you have, you're going to put it in a 3-hole binder. So you need to make sure that you can put the holes in. It's not going to type over things. That's where you would adjust your margins. It does know like what a normal printing margin is. So if you have something that is gonna, you go to print it and it says, hey, you're outside of normal printable margins. Sometimes the copier or printer will still print those, but some might not. And that's why they put that warning in there, just to say, hey, like it might not print the edge. Orientation, probably you've played with these a lot, or at least a few times. So changing it from landscape to horizontal size. And then columns is a really fun one. So many times we try to make the columns like by hand, by spacing it out or tabbing it over. You can select columns here and it will give you the options and it'll do it for you within the constraints that you've given it. So you could put columns on the whole page. You could put columns after a certain place. So maybe you wanted the heading paragraph and then the columns to go below. It'll allow you to do that here. Sometimes we end up doing a table because we want it to be spaced out. The columns is another way to do that. Indent and spacing, so playing with how far away the text is and how far over. And then these couple over here, if you had an image on this page, you can change the position or wrap text. So these are just like, do you want to tell, do you want to tell Word where that picture is going to go? Or do you want it to like center it? Or do you want it to left justify or right justify? Maybe you want the picture to be a background and you're going to type over it so you can send backward or bring forward. It's just going to allow you to play with those images. And we're going to play with an image in just a minute. Anything you want to add, Ray?
Nope. Nope, that's good.
Mailings. This is one that we don't always use, but man, if you have to do it, it can really save time. This would be where you could insert or create labels. So if you're going to do a mass mailing, I'm sure that Vicki does this. She does those, or for Kathy Curry or those ladies, to be able to, have a whole bunch of addresses that you need to print, or an email or a letter. So I sent a mail merge for the ISCs last week, giving them their usernames for Gatekeeper. So I was able to say like your name, type the letter. I was able to insert different things. They have what's called a mail merge wizard, and that's what I like to use personally because I don't do it often enough that I always remember. But you can sync that information with other spreadsheets or other locations so that you can not have to type like, Dear David. I could just say, dear, insert first name, and it'll pull from that spreadsheet. So it's pretty slick when you get it working. And then you can do envelopes, you can do labels, you can do letters, you can do email. So it is kind of a cool thing to do, right? Anything you want to add there?
Yeah, I think what you said before was good. It is powerful if you need it. Most of us will never have to use this, but boy, when you do, it's really good. When we were, Michelle Dexter and I used this a lot when we had to send out those waiver letters. Now it's different, but before, you send out a couple hundred letters that have to be personalized. This is the way to do it.
And it does let you, it can populate the whole list, and then maybe somebody goes by initials instead of their first name. It lets you go in and like just fix that one if you needed to, and then it'll print them all together. So once again, not something that everybody might ever have to use very much, but man, if you need it, it saves a lot of time. And then the next one is the review. So if you remember, Ray mentioned you could kind of see those comments, different places. This is where it's going to get into that more. So you should see some things that look familiar. We've had the editor already. We had some of the changes, images already. So now we can actually kind of dig a little bit deeper into what we're doing. So thesaurus. Most of you, you may know, if you highlight a word and right click, you can get synonyms that are accessing what's built in the thesaurus. But maybe you wanted to look up a specific word, or you wanted to kind of play around with it. You can do that without having to go to like the web and do that. I cannot say that word today. I'm so sorry. Word count. When I was in high school and college and you had to write 250 words, this was always handy for me. But Word has some of this built in now. So if you look at the bottom of the page, just when you have a document open, it's usually counting the words and counting how many pages it is there as well. Read aloud text. This is really cool. For those who need help, for somebody who's maybe they have English is not as their first language, or they have difficulty reading, or just to spell check or proof yourself. The Read aloud will highlight you can highlight your speech, and you'll be able to, it'll read back to you in a very computer voice, I might say, but it kind of sounds like Siri when she's reading your text back to you. Translate. If you wanted to switch at languages, you could do that. And then here you get to the comments. So new comment, add, delete, and then the track changes. So the one thing that I want to caution you, and I know Ray mentioned it, but just somebody who doesn't use it all the time, I have to remember, the person who created the document, that's the true author, is the only one that can make all of those go away. So if if you had a document that you want to send on and you're like, man, why does it show these changes? You can, when you go to print, you can say print without track changes, but the only way that you're ever going to make that without those there is for the author to be able to go in and you can see, you accept, you can reject, and you can even compare. So you can see what it looked like before and what it looks like now. If you use OneNote, it can link that there. So if you take case notes in OneNote and you want to insert it into a Word document, you could pull that in there. Ray, anything I missed on review?
No, we use this. Well, we're trying to use it more and more at the board level when we have a change in policies or procedures, because it's a really great place to be able to list those out, show the board what's going on. They can see exactly what's being changed, and then Gaynor just clicks a button and you're done. It's kind of nice.
Sorry, my husband is unloading the dishwasher. It's so super loud. I'm not complaining that he's doing it though. Anyway, I digress. There are other programs that will do a lot of those track changes. So in SharePoint itself, you can do that. So you can kind of see where people have made those changes. This is just unique to Word itself. So maybe somebody doesn't have full access to everything, but they have access to the Google Docs version of Word. They'll be able to see those changes. Not going to go through a whole lot on the views, but I just wanted you to know, if you ever get stuck and you're like, wait, what did I do? It doesn't look the same. Windows or Word has options so that you can have different views. So you can, read it like a book. You can see what the print layout would be, or you can see what it would look like on the web. I have a personal favorite. I like the print layout. I like to be able to see like the margins and see the, the ruler and that kind of stuff. Some people don't want to see all of that. This is where you can kind of customize. Are you zooming in? Are you seeing one page? Are you doing a couple? But I did want to show one cool feature that I don't use that often, but especially if you're only on a laptop and you're working and you're used to having two screens. Over here, you can do like a new window or arrange or split. You can actually have two Word documents open on top of each other, and you could do this by hand, but by doing that, it just does it for you really fast. So maybe you're kind of to compare text in two different places. This is just another way that you can kind of customize that so that you can see all those at once. Anything else anybody wants to add there? Okay, so we wanted to kind of make this be a little more realistic than us just talking today. So Ray created a one-page profile for John, and I'm going to kind of turn it over to him, and he's going to kind of walk you through some of the cool things you can do with Word.
Okay, so and this was just something we picked at random, but basically it's how can I take a fairly plain document and make it more accessible, more readable, more fun to read, maybe engage people a little more. And so so this is what we looked at. So this is our fairly standard one-page profile that we have on some of our folks. And then this is one that I just wrote up for John this morning. It has the same text. It's just designed in a little different way. And I think, Anne, if you can give me control. Yep. Okay. So, and actually, let's go back to your screen for 1 minute. Just.
Gosh, you're so needy.
I am. So just go to the next slide. And so I just want to show you the different things that we're going to be going over. So the first one is columns layout. That's going to be an easy one to do. And so as we go through these, and we'll just flip back and forth between these for now. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen.
And feel free to open a Word document and try along with us if you want.
Okay, so here's just the raw, the raw words. And what we wanted to do is look eventually like this. And so the first step is to get it into 2 columns. And so the way we do that is I just highlight the whole thing, right? So just Control A will highlight everything. Can you see this? It's giving me an error on my side. Can you see it?
We can see that you highlighted.
Okay, good. And then I just go to Layout, Columns, and I pick 2. And so that's all there is. And now I'm in 2 columns mode. Okay.
So
and then,
the 2 columns, just, are you going to talk about how it wraps text?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
And then actually, let's share your screen one more time, Ann, and we're going to just kind of show you everything at one time what we're going to change. Go ahead and just click through those. So we'll add a profile picture, we'll bold some headlines, we'll create larger types and text boxes, and then we'll even group some pictures. So these are all the different things that I did to get it to look the way it does there. So I'm just going to step through these things. Okay, now I'll share my screen again. Okay, so the next thing, and you're going to find this to be really, really similar to change like a font style. You just highlight it, come up to home, and you, like in this case, I can click bold. But I also want you to know that there are, if you're an older guy like me, I kind of learned using keyboard shortcuts. They're faster once you get used to them. If you hover over any of these, it'll tell you what the keyboard shortcut is, if there's one available. And so I can come in here and I can highlight these things and just do Control B and change them all to bold.
Word is kind of nice though. If you hover over it, they have a picture that means everything. If you don't know what that picture means, if you hover over it, it besides giving you the shortcut, it also gives you like a little more information about it.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see the pop-up.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so where it says makes your text bold. The other thing you can do is I can highlight different things. If I hold down the Control key, I can highlight a bunch of different text at one time. And so let's say I want to make this text bigger. I can either come up here and click the down arrow and make it bigger. I can also do Control right bracket, if you ever remember that one. And every time I click it, it just makes them one bigger. left bracket makes it one smaller.
That capital A and with the arrow up and the A with the arrow down, for those of us who don't know all the shortcuts, does the same thing.
Yeah, that's the deal. So, okay. So that takes care of both bolding the headlines and making the fonts bigger the way you'd like them to. Okay, now the next thing is I want to put a little, I want to put a profile picture of John in here. And so this one gets a little interesting because, so I'll do insert and pictures. And for me, it's going to come from my device. And so it'll come up. And I'm already in John's directory, and so I'm just going to pick this picture of John. But you can see if I take this and I move it around, it's not easy to move around, and it's really, you don't really know where it's going. And the reason there is because there's something called wrap text that governs how this goes. And the one that I like to use more than anything else is to wrap it tight. So right now, it's in line with text, but as you choose all these different ones, it can go and do different things. You know, so every time I change one of these wrap settings, so like let's say it's behind text, this will even let you just put it right over the text, which is useless unless you've got a signature or something like that you want to do it with. But for me, the one that I really like is tight. What that does is it lets me put the picture anywhere I want, and then the computer automatically just wraps it the way it needs to wrap to let me keep it where I want it. So from now, I want this up here. For those of you who haven't worked with pictures a lot, these little dots on the corners are called handles. You can click on those and make it bigger or smaller.
And Word is intuitive. So if you look at the ribbon that's showing up on Ray's screen now, it knows that you're dealing with an image. And so it brought up all the things that you can do just with that picture. So
Yep.
It added picture format. And so now we can crop it, or we can cut it, or we can rotate it if we wanted John to be sideways. Sometimes when you insert the picture, it comes in looking funky. And so this gives you the ability to do all of that. And it knows that you, as soon as you click the picture, it's like, oh, you're doing something with the picture. Okay, I'm going to be smart and help you.
Okay, and what I want to do right now is show you something that almost everybody has done at one time or another, and that's, it does, you know, Word will let you skew the picture so that it looks weird, right? By default, if you grab one of these corners, it will try to keep it proportional. And so if you want the person to look good and still, not look too skinny or too fat, this is the way to do it.
Hey, sometimes I want that skewed. I want to be thinner.
If you want that, then, well, you know how to do it now. There you go. Okay, so the next thing I want is I'm just going to put a little bar up here. If we look at our sample one more time, I have this little bar there. I want to put it there just to add some definition. So I'm going to go to Insert. In this case, I'm going to go with Shapes. And I'll just pick and you can see there's hundreds of different shapes you can pick. I'm just going to go with Line. And here, I just start here and then start to draw my line. Something you might not know is that if you hold down the Shift key, it'll make an absolutely straight line. So that part's nice, but it's a really, really thin line, and I want it to be thicker. So first, I want to make it a little darker, so I choose that color. And then I come in here again, and I choose Weight. In this case, I'm going to make it 3 points. And so that creates this nice little separator line for me. Now, all the next things, go ahead.
I was going to say, he can bump that, but it's staying within his column, if you notice. So it didn't go to the next column, but he can make it because he inserted the line. I know sometimes we draw lines with like just the dashes or something like that. This is a way to get across that.
Now, this is where a problem comes up, because if I'm trying to make it look like this one, notice I don't have any text right in here, right in the center. And I like it that way. I like just having the picture there. So I could do it a couple different ways. I could I could come in. John's going to join our meeting. I could come in and just start that 2 columns later in the document, but there's another way to do it. And that is that I can click on John's picture here, and then I can come back up to picture format, into wrap text, and say edit wrap points. So this is kind of neat because it gives you actual points that now you can move around, and it won't let text appear where you move those wrap points. So I just moved those out, made a little more room for John, and it'll make sure that it keeps all the text out of that area. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm going to assume you're all nodding behind your no
I'm
videos.
nodding.
Okay, good.
I always would have just entered down, and I know that's not the most efficient way.
Yeah, so, and what's nice about this is that you can add wrap points to it, so you can actually make it go, curve around an object and do all sorts of cool things. But in its simplest form, it does just what I did there. Okay, the last thing that I'm going to do here is that I want to add a couple of text boxes because this thing about important to me and important for me are not standing out enough for me. I'd like those are prominent. And so I'm going to go back to insert, and then I'm going to go to text box. And if I click down there, I've got all sorts of different options I can choose here. And the one that I like, let's see where we are here. No. Let's do this one. Okay, so this is just a text box. Like anything else, I can come in here and say wrap and make it type. And then I'm going to just copy this text, this important to me. Actually, I'm going to cut it. And then I'm going to highlight this and place it there.
And Ray, what shortcuts are you using for that?
So for this one, you could just go up to, well, I'm just cutting and pasting.
Copy, or
so
you can do
you
Control
could just
X.
right click and paste, or right click and copy, or cut. I'm using some, again, old school things. So I use Control X to cut it and Control V to paste it. Not quite sure why I'm doing that. Let's take this back out.
And sometimes it gets funky and you have to play around with it.
There we go. So in this particular case, I'm going to do the same thing with important for me. So again, just the insert text box, pick the same thing that I had with, which I think the Austin quote. Make it tight. Then bring it in here.
He's doing that. Just one thing to, as somebody who learned from columns a little bit the hard way, the column does wrap from top left to bottom right. So like communication strategies that work best that we're seeing right now, if you had more text above that, that would pop to the top of the next page, or the next column rather. So, figuring out what you want in what column, you'll kind of see how it wraps, but you can't just go and try to start typing right at the next spot. Sometimes it does get a little angry at you that way.
Okay. So you can see here, now we've got call out boxes for important to me, important for me. We've got those boxes populated the way we want. It's wrapped around on the bottom to show me the rest of the communication strategies that are still left over. We've got all the headlines the way we want them, and we've got John's picture in here. And so then the last thing we have to do is, if you remember that one here, these are a couple of characters from some of John's favorite programs. These are on everything in our house, from t-shirts to Sarah just made a pillow with this little guy on it. But John loves these characters, loves those old programs, and runs them every day. So so I wanted to make it part of his profile because it'll really kind of tell you a little bit about him. And so with those, I do something kind of interesting. So I just go out to the web, and I just go to Google, and I just search Google Images. So in this case, Freddy the Fish. And so if you click on images here, these are all images of Freddy the Fish. I find one that I like. In this case, I like this. This is Freddy and his fish Luther. So I just right-click on that and copy the image. And then I go back to Word. I can just come in here and just right-click there and paste the picture in. Does that make sense to everybody?
So then if you notice, because it's a picture, the picture format popped up again.
Yeah, and so I can just drop them in really wherever I need them. And then let's say I wanted to get another picture in there. We'll do.
Now, if you are going to do something that's like for publication, you have to be careful that you're not stealing, you know, somebody's pictures with rights and stuff like that. So you always want to use free images.
Such a Debbie Downer.
It was Ned. I'm blaming him.
It's true. You don't want to use these for publication necessarily, but for the stuff that we're using it for, you're actually allowed to use it for things like this purpose.
Ned said it was his role as records manager.
There you go. I like that. Way to go, Ned. Okay, so there's a couple things here. One is that now you can see it's kind of screwed this up a little bit. So one thing we can do is we can highlight both of these pictures together, perhaps. I wonder if I have to make that one tight as well. And so, yeah. So they have to have the same wrap. But then when I do, I can come over here and click on group and group them together. Now it's a single entity. And now I can change the wrap there. We're gonna do top and bottom for that one. And so now when I move it around, it moves it as a unit, and it automatically moves the text out of the way.
If you've ever done this before or you've worked with somebody who's done it, sometimes people will do it different ways. Like when my husband does this, he uses it in PowerPoint and does his images, and then he brings them back to Word. There's not a right or wrong way. We just wanted to show you that you could do it in Word.
Except for the fact that I think your husband's wrong.
Well, I do too, but
I'm
won't
joking. Okay, so really that's what we have for you today. We just wanted to show you how some of these things work. We'll make these documents and stuff available to you too. What kinds of questions do you have?
We didn't want it to be too much review. We actually wanted to show some things that maybe you haven't done very much.
I missed that portion about the text box where you turn the text blue. What feature was that up in the ribbon section?
Okay, let me share my screen again. So you can do it a couple of different ways, James. So you can go to Insert and go to Text Box. And if you want to, you can just put in a plain text box and then start dressing it up the way you want. So I could just go this way. Let's zoom in on it. And then I can just type in something this, come on, text box. I could just highlight the text, come back to the home button, and change the color of the text to whatever I want.
Okay.
And make it bold and italicized. You can do whatever you want there. And then you can add lines and things like that in there too. But the other thing you can do is you can choose any of these text box designs. So I can come in here. Let's say I wanted to run the whole sidebar. I could drop it in and it automatically formatted it. And then all I have to do is just type over the dummy typing that they have in here.
Okay.
And so it just gives you a bunch of different cool little design features with very little work.
And I like what you did with the bars up and below. So is that
So
something you?
James, you could draw those lines in there and just make them really thick.
Oh, okay.
But the text boxes are just a way to make it go faster. It would have taken time to, format that text, draw the text box, add the lines, do all that.
Right.
This is just a quicker way to do it.
In my case, I just added the version called Austin Quote.
Okay.
And then that one has that cool little, kind of thing you'll see in a book. I just kind of like that call out.
Yeah, I like that too. I just thought maybe it came with the bars up and below.
Yeah.
The type of things you're showing me is things that I definitely would like to use in Project Search. I've been doing some, but not quite this elaborate.
Yeah, here's another one, James, that I think, this would be a more formalized document or maybe a more romantic kind of document, but it's, it lets you know you can do all sorts of stuff with the text box, and they have some stuff that's pre-formatted that's really really pretty attractive.
Wow.
So Ray, your picture just bumped to the second page. Let's say we didn't want columns after that first page. The second page, I just want it to be regular. Can you show us how you would make the columns stop from there on?
Yeah, so here you would just highlight it, go back to layout, go to columns, and just click one.
And so if you notice, it left the columns up above, but now it's put me back to one column and I can keep going.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Well, you want to make sure you get your money's worth here. So
there are whole classes that you can take on using Word. It's something that you use a lot, but we just kind of wanted to show you the quick version and some of the things that we might do regularly. It's a quiet crowd today, Ray.
it is.
We're just mystified in all of what you guys do. So it just leaves us holding our breath.
I don't know if you caught the biggest eye roll ever, James, but.
I hope that's an eye of agreement, but.
Well, we do accept tips, and John being, John's a pretty expensive model. I just wanted to point that out. These take some underwriting.
So we didn't talk about the reference tab at all. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know a whole lot about it because it didn't exist when I was writing research papers. But the reference tab helps. So if you have kiddos in school and they're writing their research paper, remember how we used to just have to write on our note card what page number it was from and where it came from. It allows you to kind of do that as you go, and it'll put your headers and footers and your footnotes and all that kind of stuff in. So definitely if you are going back to school or you need to do something like that, utilize that. I would have to learn how to do it.
That started off in Office 10, and it's a real help, especially when you're building your bibliography. Just if you ever go back to school, it's worth it.
You mean I don't have to write every single thing out on a piece of notebook paper and then try to type it all in?
We don't want to take away your fun. Sure, you can go ahead.
Oh gosh.
Okay. And any other questions? We're at what, 2:04, so we don't want
Yep.
to keep you too long. This is, but we're still here for any questions you might have.
Oh, one thing I did want to point out, Ray, can you show us, like if something was capitalized because Word thought it should be at the beginning of a line, how do I make it undo that? Or any of the things that Word tries to auto format?
So it kind of depends. Like
So-
what kind of thing were you?
So sometimes, like, although if I typed it there, Word would want it to be capitalized.
Right.
And it'll give me a little funky line saying, hey, that's not capitalized. But maybe the way it's worked, I know that there were questions, like if you're typing in a box or something and you space down and you want it to be, just know that when Word tells you it wants you to do something, or maybe it automatically starts numbering, or it doesn't restart the numbering. If you hover over it, or if you right click and you say like, don't hyperlink or do hyperlink, or, you know, don't capitalize or do capitalize, you can tell Word to do it or not do it. So it made this a hyperlink where Ray just typed the Fairfield DD, but maybe he doesn't actually want it to be. He just wants it to be the words. He can remove the hyperlink and it'll turn black. Word just has certain things that it's kind of intuitively tries to predict that you're going to do. Sometimes maybe you want to be smarter than Word. You can tell it to not do that. Or like if Freddy the fish, if it bugs you that it's underlined, you know, that's coming from the editor portion. He could go up and say, you know, make part of the dictionary, or ignore all, or ignore this one. Like you're just kind of acknowledging to Word, I do know what I'm doing. It's not just a misspelling.
Yep.
That was the only thing I was going to add.
Teresa, it looked like you were going to say something here a little bit ago.
No, I was just going to say thank you. And yeah, I'm looking forward to playing around and making nice looking documents like this. Pressure's on, guys.
There you go. Well, the hard part is getting the pictures, right? So once you have that, it's easy.
Logos, logos, logos. Fairfield DD in black or white or gray or blue or. All right. Well, thanks all for joining us. And if you have more questions, don't hesitate to let us know. And then we'll figure out what program we want to investigate next.
Now, is this on the YouTube video channel, or are we just?
It will be. As soon as we're done, I will transfer the recording and I'll send out the link.
Okay. Hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Learn something new every
Thanks,
day.
Anna Ray.
Thanks for the tips.